This right here is Microsoft's Surface Laptop 4.5. Well, I mean, Microsoft calls it the Surface Laptop 5, but for all intents and purposes, at first impressions, it literally looks like the Surface Laptop 4. However, if the insides are what count, then there definitely are some changes to note. For beginners, for this configuration right here, we have the Intel 1255U i5 chip with Evo certification. We also have 8 GB of speedy LPDDR5X memory. We have Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics, a 512 GB solid-state drive. We do have a slightly dated Wi-Fi 6 standard and Bluetooth 5.1 standard on board. And finally, this is a 13-inch display with a variation or custom QHD resolution. Now, this is a very interesting laptop and there is a lot of stuff I want to cover, so let's get right into it. Microsoft has become very proficient in the art of packaging. This box looks beautiful. You have an image of the Surface Laptop 5 up front in the color you get it in. On the backside, some basic technical specifications. Anyway, once you remove all the protective packaging around the box, it opens right up and removes some more protective packaging. And finally, here is the Surface Laptop 5, looking very similar but just as attractive as its predecessor. You also have the inclusion of a 65-watt charging adapter that does come with Microsoft's proprietary Surface Connect pin. I personally like it. Anyway, past that, you do have the wall outlet charging cable piece. And then finally, you have a paper pouch. Inside here, you'll find the quick start guide, warranty, and regulation information. Now, don't get me wrong. Design-wise, I think the Surface Laptop 5 is one of the most nimble and elegant looking PC laptops in 2022. Even though it uses the exact same design as the Surface Laptop 4, it still has a full metal build. It just looks very nice to the eyes. With that said, it has a modest weight of about 2.8 pounds, which makes it one of the heavier 13-inch laptops in the market, but not necessarily unreasonable in that account. Now, of course, starting with the top side, you have a flush metal surface finish, no particular texture. It looks clean yet simple. In the center, you do have the shiny and reflective Microsoft logo to remind you paid a ton of money for this thing. On the sides of this laptop is where you'll find the ports, and I'm pretty reluctant to use the plural form of that word because you basically have one USB-A 3.2 port, one Thunderbolt 4 certified USB-C port, and a headphone jack. That's it. No, really, because on the other side, you just have the Surface Connect charging pin, and that's it. No SD card reader, no additional USB-C port. Highly disappointing. Honestly, they could have easily added at least one more USB-C port at the bare minimum. It's just not very mature of a laptop at this price point. At the bottom, you have a flush and clean metallic surface finish. It looks really nice. However, one major design flaw that continues is the fact that you have a very thin, linear, ultimately long air intake vent, which is located at the top side of the bottom. And this has huge repercussions in terms of thermal management, which I will talk about later on in the video. But beyond that, not much else to see here. As soon as you unfold this laptop, you immediately fall in love with that premium inner chassis. Just look at that smooth metallic finish all around. Now, the real star here is that trackpad. It has a super smooth glass surface finish that looks flawless. Additionally, the clicks are perfectly tactile. It's so nice to press down on this thing. And another thing I love is the well-calibrated click zones. Generally speaking, this is one of the best trackpads out there. I'm totally in love with it. The keyboard is equally as impressive, so you have well-labeled keycaps that are sturdy. Additionally, the light gray color goes nicely with the rest of the body. The keystrokes are great as well, so you have a decent amount of key travel. Additionally, you have the right amount of tactility where it's kind of feels like a mechanical keyboard almost, but it's not super loud like a mechanical keyboard. Of course, it's worth noting you do have a fully backlit keyboard over here. However, you will not find a 10-key pad, which is quite normal for a 13-inch laptop, and you'll also notice no biometric fingerprint scanning here. However, you do have facial recognition built into the webcam. Between the keyboard and the hinge is where you have the hot air exhaust vent. Now, the hinge itself is quite reliable and sturdy. There's very little wobbling. As far as the display fitting goes, you have a relatively thick chin at the bottom, and the bezels are actually very noticeable, which kind of looks a little outdated. At the top, you have the forehead, which of course includes a disappointing 720p ancient antique outdated webcam. It's just disappointing that this is a premium laptop that does not have a full HD webcam. And again, it's just, why Microsoft? Seriously. Now, the display is one of the more pleasant things about this laptop. So just like last year, you still have that custom QHD display with a 2256 by 1504 resolution, which gives you a interesting 3:2 aspect ratio. Additionally, you do have a 60 Hz refresh rate, a high quality IPS panel with amazing viewing angles, no PWM flickering, and a 10-point multi-touch system, which is also compatible with the Surface Pen. It's also worth noting this laptop has a overall brightness of 500 nits, which is more than ample for most indoor and outdoor settings alike. Now, in terms of color accuracy, you have an impressive 96% sRGB rating, which means it's more than enough for most color sensitive activities like photo editing, for example. Generally speaking, I think this is a pretty solid display. Now, performance on this machine is a rather gloomy topic, but it actually has very little to do with the specifications. In fact, that 12th gen i5 chip can blaze through any day-to-day task, whether it's web browsing, document crunching, or streaming HD content. But when you start doing more moderately intensive activities like 3D modeling or coding, you notice a fair bit of thermal throttling. Again, this is not the specifications, but rather the heat buildup. And if you start doing even more intensive activities like video editing at 1080p or higher, you notice there is a fair bit of frame drop. Now, granted, getting the slightly more expensive 16GB variant will relieve this to some extent, but the core issue is again the heat buildup that's going on here. Now, gaming is also very much possible. You can run games like Fortnite at a healthy 30 plus frames per second, though I will admit that 3:2 aspect ratio can make games look a little clustered. It's more optimized for productivity based tasks. In terms of thermals, the Surface Laptop 5 is a hot computer, just not the good kind. So under unrealistic peak loads, this device can hit an average surface temperature of up to 47 degrees Celsius. That is pretty darn hot. But even under more realistic heavy or sustained loads, you can hit up to 43 degrees Celsius, which again is a little too close for comfort. Now, with that said, of course, fan noise is equally annoying because, well, while the overall maximum fan noise only goes up to 42 decibels, do anything remotely intensive and the fan starts hitting high RPMs and coming pretty close to the maximum noise level to begin with, which makes this a pretty loud device. Battery life is quite pleasing. So based on our test, we got up to 13.5 hours on a single charge doing activities like web browsing, light photo editing, watching HD content on YouTube and Netflix, and even periodically using the speakers at about 30% volume. Now, speaking of sound, I have to say the speaker quality is top notch over here for a 13-inch laptop. It's clear, it's crisp, it is top firing, so the sound essentially comes from beneath the keyboard. Well, just have a quick listen for yourself and you be the judge.
I look at what's in front of me, don't focus on the other things. I know that if I'm struggling, that only leads to a tougher me. And I want and need something that could challenge me, build up all my calluses, push through all their callousness. Becoming reckless, I'm ambitious and I'm restless, yeah. Was an apprentice but possessed a different engine, so I asked a lot of questions and I learned a lot of lessons, yeah.
With a glorious price tag of $1,000 US, this machine definitely treads well into premium laptop territory. And look, part of me wants to say I love this laptop. After all, it does have a great design, amazing high quality build. It also has a great trackpad with a fantastic keyboard and one of the best displays you can find on a 13-inch machine. However, I look at this laptop and I say all those things are already there with the Surface Laptop 4, and I ask what's improved, and that's where Microsoft ultimately fails. This is essentially the same laptop with just slightly updated internals. On the contrary, it still has the same thermal management issues it had last year, which ultimately affect its performance and put it at a disadvantage compared to some of its competitors. I also don't appreciate the fact that there's a total lack of sufficient ports and a low quality webcam. None none of these things are noteworthy of a premium laptop or a laptop that claims to be the successor of last year's model. In contrast to this, I think the likes of the Dell XPS 13 and HP Spectre put more visible effort in improving their product, or at least they have with this generation. Nonetheless, if you had your eyes on the Surface Laptop 4, the 5 is essentially the same thing with updated specifications, so in that case it might make sense to get it. But this is just my honest thought. I'd love to hear what you think of the Surface Laptop 5 and if you'll be getting one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, make sure you hit that like button and consider subbing to our channel. It genuinely helps us grow. Catch you in the next one.